Here.
Sabers.
Here.
McCardle. Dosher. Barrington. Allen.
Here.
We have a quorum. Action on Resolution R 2019-54, resolution of intent to amend Business Improvement District Number 2 to extend Sports and Events Authority funding. This is for the bid that is currently in place. Do you want to?
Would council like just a brief overview of what this action is going to do for this?
Yeah, if we could, the current dollar amount, that when it runs out, that type of stuff.
So the current bid 2 tax is a total of $1.50. 50 cents of that goes towards SEA operations currently. That's set to expire through the end of October of this year. The first thing that we need to do in order to be able to renew that pursuant to state law is to pass this resolution of intent. The intention would be to renew that same 50 cents for an additional 5 years. But that's going to take future action by this. This is just the resolution of intent, which is required by state law. So once this is passed, we'll send out a notice of hearing to the affected property owners. Actually should be ready to go in the mail early tomorrow morning. And then I believe the hearing would be September 3rd. And then you could take, also do first reading that night on the ordinance.
So just to clarify, of the $1.50 we have in place right now, the 50 cents is going to roll off. The dollar will continue until the pool is paid for. Correct. And then we're looking at, if you think we just did it, sure seems like it. So that was a 3-year renewal. We're going to see if the hotel owners would be willing to go 5 years. And then that would fund the Sports and Events Authority during that time period. And what it brings in is approximately $80,000 a year is what that 50 cents brings in. And then of course, what we do is we turn around and encourage events to come to town, or the ones that are here to get larger. The mayor and I and Stephanie sit on that board, and we meet over in the chamber once a month. And we're pretty active. We're going to get more active now because the chamber has gone through and I think we talked about this, hiring an events coordinator, not only for the CVB, but also for the Sports and Events Authority. So they're going to, Katie Bushbach is going to physically go out and meet with associations and committees and so forth. And instead of having everybody come into the meetings, we're actually going to reach out to them and again, try to encourage more events in town. So what we want to do is get the hotel rooms filled up even in the off season. So
Jeff,
that's what we're trying.
the 50 cents, you could do $2 a bid tax, is that correct?
We can go up to $2. So the other 50 cents at this point is just unassigned.
Okay.
You're
Well,
right.
it's something to look at in the future.
Correct.
And just for council's information, we did send out an informational letter about a week or so ago, which asked the affected owners and managers to, give us their position as to whether this should be renewed or not. And we've only heard back, I think, one response yet, but they've still got time to get those responses in. If you remember from the last bid meeting we had, you don't need to have a majority approve, but you can't proceed if there's a majority that disapprove. So if nobody's voicing opposition, basically their votes are a yes by default.
You use all the 80,000 a year you collect, Jeff?
It varies, but yes, we're starting to get more events. One of the bigger ones that we've done the last couple years is the Hot Harley Nights on the way out to Sturgis. I'm sorry. Yeah, Hot Harley's in Sioux Falls, isn't it? The pre-Sturgis, and then Special Olympics. We put in bids, and of course that's in the March and September when we're really kind of hoping people come to town. And so we were not able to host, those are the two larger ones, we weren't able to bid those, or at least jumpstart it without the Sports and Events Authority. So those type of events would go away. But we're coming pretty close. Oh, you can see right up here.
So the bottom chart here, or the middle box, just shows you how much has been actually written in checks or awards each of those years. There's a number of items that are still kind of being held for commitments that have been made but haven't occurred yet. And our Sports and Events Authority Committee reports and makes recommendations to the mayor. They review every week the financial status to see how things are going, and I'm trying to pull up the right one and I can't find it, and how many events are happening and what the dollar awards are going for each different type of event.
And if you had that extra 50 cents, you might be able to get more, or not yet.
You know, I think we're comfortable with where we're at now. I guess I don't want to speak on behalf of the committee or anything, but Stephanie, if you go to the top of that one again, you see up there, that's what we've awarded, you know,
Right.
We just got started halfway through 13, but, yeah, that's the revenue up there. And so you can see we took a little while to kind of get jump started, and then, you know, in 2017 was 86,000. That was the largest in that year, and then we dropped off a little in 18, and then we'll see where we're going to end up in 19. Dan sits on that committee also, forgot about that, as representing one of the hotels in town. So I don't think there's any that we left behind
Sure, okay.
as a result. Not yet.
So, looking at 2019 and the fact that you've already collected 64,000, I mean, we still have a lot left to come. Would you have a projected, are you thinking that a lot more than that will come in?
Actually, the 31,000
Oh,
is
the
this is
31.
the revenue
I was
up
looking at the
here.
wrong chart,
This is
sorry.
how much has actually been awarded.
Promise. Okay.
And so the board every year or every month looks at the total revenue received plus the expenses to look at what's remaining in the balance, and then they factor out any commitments that have already been made that could be happening in future years to see what the remaining balance. So if you look at, this is the actual available balance after all committed funds were removed. So there's about 18,000. So the committee has been fully allocating those funds to the current events that have requested funding.
Move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Allen, second by Mrs. Charks. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. We'll adjourn special council meeting and turn it over to council president for work session. Just a second. Did you get the TV turned on so I can see it? It's not on. That's all right. It just saves me from having to turn around and look back. Plus the game was on. No. There you go.
I can never make that work, so we better hope
You can go ahead and start. Just, it'd be nice to have it.
Yeah, like, oh, it's this time. It is what it is.
You're not getting
Nothing up there. Got it?
We did this on purpose. Well. Is the TV on yet?
No.
Nope.
No? Sorry, Mayor.
That's all right, we'll get.
Might be on must have something worse than magic there.
Oh, there it is. Let there be light. You must have been the same way.
Okay.
Okay, so here's.
Okay, we'll start with, want to cue your mic? What's that? Cue your mic. Can you hear me?
Is the green light on it? too?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
And now?
Hello? Green light's on.
Crap in the ears.
Oh, you might want to talk. Okay. Excuse me, we'll start out the work with the city council work session for tonight. There won't be any input by the public, it'll just be with the council members, will give what their input on what they think should happen and what shouldn't happen, and maybe Stephanie could maybe highlight the packet to start out with, to give us a little idea what her and Bob, her and the mayor have done a good job of trying to get a balanced budget, which they do have a balanced budget right now, and it's our job to go through, I guess, and make sure we want to keep it balanced that way. So if you want to go through.
Sure. Last week, we did an overall financial presentation to the council that showed the current financial projections, both in the budget and just as a whole for the city of Mitchell. We also did a high-level overview of the projects that were included in funding. The rest of the information that was included in today's packet also includes, we have a number of different comparisons, so council can see our fund overview where we're starting the budget, what the revenue changes and expense changes are for each of the budgets from 2019 in comparison to what the 2020 proposed budget is. Additional information on the capital projects. Again, we did review a couple of those. I did have one change that I noticed that was wrong on this list, and we do still have one of the patrol cars in the budget. So that would be under public safety. I just need to note this right away so I don't forget to tell. On this sheet, it showed that this was not included in the budget, and actually in the proposed budget, there is $38,923 for a patrol car. So one of the two cars are included in the proposed budget. I just wanted to make sure I make a note of that because this was done in error. And then the subsidy applications, we do have a subcommittee of city council that come in and review those applications in full, including the format that the city requires. The application format is that each of the subsidy applications have to complete a number of questions. They have to include their financial overview and provide that as part of the application. In the application, we do state that there isn't an automatic presentation by each subsidy request, and instead they're to answer questions as directed by the council. But I know in years past, 6-7 years ago, you used to have everybody come in, and we have went away from that, and they have the initial committee discussion so they can go through some of the more sensitive financial information as well. And then at the bottom there, we've got our other upcoming meetings. Council did have me reserve August 5th for another potential budget work session if needed before the next meeting. And then, of course, our public hearings are the first and second meeting in September. And those are the ones that council will hear your first reading. They'll take public input for any proposed changes to that ordinance that comes from the public directly. So that's kind of the timeline that we're working on at this point. I'm happy to walk council through any of these. I guess the one major item that we discussed a little bit at length at the last meeting was that we are starting with a structurally balanced budget. So you can see what our original department requests were in revenue and expenses. You can see we started with a $15 million difference. We had some additional revenue added in and some expenditures cut through that process. The revenue was really just financing that was omitted from the department request on our infrastructure projects. And then as you go through, you can see the proposed budget, what the balance is, and then this last column that says balance, you can really look at that as increased transfers. So the first one there, 319, that means we're going to transfer $319,000 more to park next year than we did this year. So that's what this column is. It's just showing where those transfers in and out of funds are going to be changing for next year. And then our enterprise funds are all in yellow. Those that have cash applied are for capital improvement projects. And I know we spent quite a bit of time talking about that last time. So I'm really here to answer any questions that council may have. In the past, you've wanted to walk through either capital improvements or the subsidy applications and make requests or changes. So we're here to answer any questions you might have.
Maybe before we get there, can you maybe just step us through where obviously our major
Sure.
revenue that comes in is through sales tax. And of course, you know, we've talked about that we're really watching it close here in 19. And so kind of walk through of where you're thinking where we're going to put the 2020 at this point.
We actually projected a flat sales tax from the previous year's budget, and then in addition to that, we reduced sales tax $230,000 due to the upcoming loss of the, I'm going to say this right this time, the Internet Service Provider tax. It's not the online sales, it's the people who are actually providing internet service, and that will no longer be taxed next year due to federal law changes. And that is a direct loss in revenue to the city of $230,000. So we did not project any growth in sales tax. Like I said, we reduced it down. We kept it flat, but then we took out what we knew that loss was going to be. We're still kind of waiting to see where we end this year. So far, we seem to be flat, which is okay. Hearing from other cities today at a meeting, there's a lot of cities that are seeing quite a decrease already. So we're hoping that we continue to remain flat, but we also didn't project a large increase in this year's budget either. You can, if you're interested, you can look at the revenue changes by fund from 2019 to 2020, and you can see the general fund went up about $2.5 million in revenue. That's largely just financing for projects. It's not like we're not expecting a big increase in tax or anything like that. It's just that bond proceeds for SRF financing that comes into the general fund, and then some of it comes into there and others are paid out. I'm sorry, it's a decrease, and that's because of the last year we had the big increase of projected revenue. You can go down and see the rest of them are really pretty much flat. There isn't a big change. Our TIFs, we don't really see a big change either. We did bring revenue down in some of our enterprise funds to be closer to what the actuals have been. So you'll see a decrease for the golf course as Corn Palace is not that much more, but it definitely didn't grow. So we're keeping that down. And then you'll see growth in sanitation and in sewer and in water. And that's largely due to the rate increases that council passed in order to pay off the debt service for the infrastructure projects that we're completing. Similar, you can go through and look at the changes by fund for expenses. And we went down in the general fund on expenses. Largely, again, the project costs are different. We've already got the first half of Sanborn out. We went up in park fund. And then you can go down the line. You can see most of them have very small increases, if any, until you get down to our utility accounts. And then you see water and sewer. Those are major increases, and those are due to projects that are coming out of those departments. We had, I believe, $3 million in water for the water tower removal and the new construction of a new tower. We've got that. Part of the Sanborn projects are going to come out of there, and part of the East Central drainage projects are going to come out of there. So that's kind of your high-level overview on the changes. I guess one of the questions that we get asked a lot is what's your overall budget? So if you wanted to see the total expense budget for all the city budgets is $50,144,309 as proposed, which is an increase of about 2.23 from last year, which 2.2, I can't read that far. Yeah, 2.23.
So that's about a 4%.
Yep, and I believe that's on there too. And that increase is largely, like I said, those infrastructure projects that will be coming out of the utility accounts. And just for the general public's awareness that maybe haven't heard some of those council discussions, that's part of the implementation of your facility plan that the council adopted. It's been now 3 years ago, and staging in those improvements so that we can handle our growth and expansion for services within the city. Replacing some of the old stuff, but also making sure that we can meet future capacity demands.
Get back to the indoor pool. How did we do after the first year of operation?
Would you
You-
like Nate
you-
to answer that?
Yeah, Nate, could you answer that?
We had a very good year. We hit most of our goals around that 75% cost recovery after we subtracted the flooding that we had. We had some flooding damage, but that was insurance related. But we met our goals. I think at the year end, we were maybe 2,000 above, more in expenses than we were in the past after you subtract revenue from our expenses there. So we did pretty good. Yep.
And I know we mentioned this earlier in the year when another issue came up, but the department did a really, really phenomenal job of monitoring what those revenue levels were coming in at so that they adjusted their spending, knowing that they would still meet what their overall net goal was in the budget.
Quick question for Nate, too. Being as we're talking about the swimming pool, have they noticed a decrease at the outdoor pool, being as we have the indoor pool now as far as numbers, or?
Well, we've had a slight decrease year over year, but we haven't noticed anything more
Nothing major?
than what we've had in the past. This year might be a little different because of the weather.
Okay, well, does anybody have any questions? I'm just going to kind of open it up for anybody that has questions on any of them. I think the subsidy is probably going to take us most times of anything. Capital improvement projects or?
I've got one on capital, and Nate, your name's up again. And it included in there, and it's at the ice arena, and it's the bumper cars. Can you, and I think those were included. I've got a couple questions. How heavy are they? What is their maximum speed? And what do we have in place when one of them breaks down?
I can get those specs for you. I don't have them with me today, but I can get those specs to you prior to the next meeting if you'd like.
Okay.
Yep.
Here's my concern. If a bumper car damages a board or breaks the glass, the Hockey Association can't have an event by state Hockey Association rules, because you can't have broken glass or damaged board and have a hockey game that's sanctioned by the state.
Yeah,
So-
there would be no issue with that at all. They're
How-
very small, very slow,
How,
kind of self-contained. I don't know if we can get a video.
yeah,
of it.
but if right, but if I'm running it and I can run into the board at 10 miles an hour, we have hockey people hit glass and it shatters at less than 10 miles an hour. So that's my question. I want to know how heavy they are, what their maximum speed is.
Yeah, I can get those specs for you.
Okay? Because if it puts the Hockey Association not being able to host events, that's their income.
Nathan, how many of these bumper cars are you looking at?
We were going to get 10.
So they're each almost $7,000 apiece?
Right.
That's correct.
Yeah.
I also need to point out, just because it might not be completely visible, that the revenue budget for Park and Rec, I believe, includes $42,000.
Right, yep.
Right, so the net difference on the two is going to be the 68 expense plus the 42 revenue, just so everyone's aware.
I'm just worried about damage and because I think if we wouldn't try and do something at the indoor pool that would potentially prevent the swimmers from having to meet. And I know from the Hockey Association, and we've had that issue before, we had cracked glass and had to do an emergency order. We had one of the gates not closed correctly, and we had to have that emergency fixed. So I'm concerned something running into the boards at 10 miles an hour, even though they might not hit the glass might break. Yeah. And that concerns me.
Yeah, Mr. Rice, the Ice Bumper Cars Company has been very good about getting back with us, so we'll get that information to you. Yep.
Where's the closest one around
I
here
think it's a
like
cool
this?
idea. I just want to make sure.
It'd be, I believe, in Minnesota.
Okay.
Yep, I can't say which ice arena, but yeah.
Thank you.
Nate, Nate, one of the things too, you can maybe check around to see if there has been any other possible concerns like that where, I mean, from what I'm seeing and obviously not being part of it, I think a physical body hits these boards harder than these things are going to, but I'm just saying maybe you can ask,
We can do that.
you know, ask some other facilities that have done it, have they came into this problem where they're breaking glass, and
Yep.
I think that is maybe make some, do phone calls to some other areas that already
Yeah.
do this, because they wouldn't probably offer it if they had an issue with it all the time. I don't see it becoming a trend if it was a problem, so.
Yep, all right, sounds good.
Nathan, also you project 42,000 in income from rental of these things?
Yes,
Correct.
and that's a very conservative number.
How much you run them for? How long? How often is the ice available to have these out?
Yeah, like $6 for 10 minutes, and we'd have it during open skate time only. And we ran the numbers at half use. Actually, I ran it at about 40% usage, and that's what we came up with. I talked to some of the others, and they're having $100,000 in revenue from these, so they're doing very well. And it would also help increase our open skate program. The way it's set up there in that photo is how it would look with the open skate, and a third of the rink closed down for the bumper cars.
It would be good if we can get the revenue. It'd be nice.
Yeah, really nice. What's the rate as far as, do they break easy or are they pretty durable? Or don't know that?
Yeah, they'll be under warranty for a while, and from what I'm hearing, it's recommended from another city that I've talked to. They have had great success with it and had little issues with those. Yeah.
Okay.
So Nate, do we have a safe place to store these when they're not in use and out of the public's?
Yep, they'll come with a stacking system where they'll be able to stack them.
Oh.
I'd like to see the 5-year road plan. I've got people that called me about it and trying to get an idea of what is going to happen.
And you may have remembered at our last meeting that we talked about that we're doing, and I'll let Kyle go into more detail, but that we're doing more than we typically would. The goal that Kyle had stated is that they would go out first in the year to try to make sure that our paving is a priority on the list of what will get done. And these would be funded out of our state funding.
Yeah, so like Stephanie said, we've got this plan for early next year. We're trying to get the bid books into a standard spec so we can get it out early and discuss with the contractor as well on the bid procedure. But it worked real well this year with getting it out and getting the asphalt contractor there early on. So Loma Linda is it's a roadway that experienced a lot of damage this year from the early storms in March and April. So it does not have a good drainage system, and so that's part of the reconstruct on Loma Linda. Main Street is a mill and overlay right from 7th on to, if we can get to 19th, that would be great. And then West Harmon is from the fishing bridge or the West End Bridge around the bend to the north side. And that is an overlay as well. And then South Wisconsin and Quinn Street is just from Spruce all the way to Raleigh to connect that as well. That's correct. There's no drainage. There's the water main that we put in on South Wisconsin, we don't have a good storm sewer system or sanitary system. We're in the process of putting that together as far as a design and assessment, and then a design package to rebuild, to actually build and construct the road.
Is that by Dakota Manufacturing? Or-
You go by the,
It's north of James Valley Nursery.
Okay.
it's James Valley.
Yeah, yep. I know where it's.
Trellis.
Yep, Trellis. Used to be Dakota. I know where. Okay. Yeah, all of them. Just go through the 5-year plan.
Keep going.
2021.
Yeah, really, this is an estimate of where we can get to on the next year in 2021 and then 2022. But these are the roadways that we go through and assess. Kevin Roth and Terry go out and actually do an assessment of the road, seeing when the last time they were built versus when they were chip sealed, and then when they need an overlay. So as you go through 2021 and 2022, these are the ones that are at the end of their life, going through the chip seal program and having gone through the chip seal program and then needing the overlay.
And you're using the new product that is at the outset a little more expensive but lasts longer, is that
Well,
right?
so this is not the chip seal. This is the maintenance overlay. Yeah, but we are going to, for our chip seal plan, we are going to use the fog seal after that. So it is a little more expensive, but the petroleum both helps with the adhesion of the chip seal on top, and then it really saves our maintenance on our street sweeper as well without collecting all those chips.
Very good.
I got a quick question, Kyle. I've had a lot of questions the last few days on Maddie Street. Are they going, is that in the works to be a through street?
Actually, right now, we're trying to set up a meeting with the landowners on both sides so that we can go through. There is a plan already. There's a design. SPN has done one a couple years back. So we're going to talk with the developers on both sides, and it makes sense to connect that all the way to Havens. That would be the goal. It'd be a great access for the woods and Wild Oak to get down to Havens and not have to go just to First Street. So we're planning that next week as far as talking with the developers and getting a plan for a schedule going.
And I'm sure you all saw this in the packet, but this would be your chip seal plan as well.
Right. So the yellow is identified for this year, 2019. The red is identified for the 2020 plan. So we're trying to get up to, not the bumper cars, but trying to get, we're trying to get up to about 20 blocks, 20 equivalent blocks, and that'll give us a program that, hopefully a chip seal program that would be every 7 years for all the roads throughout the city. So we're trying to get to that goal. We're closer to 10, 11, maybe 12 years right now. If we could get up to 20, 22, 25 blocks, we think we can bring that down to every 7 years a road would get chipped.
And I just want to point out too, I know in the past we've had questions from council about, can we really get all of these done on the plan? The good thing is with the change in schedule of bidding that Kyle is pursuing, and the fact that we're applying our state funds for these projects, it's not like you're having to decide between these projects and something else. So, you know, we're going to try this change, and if it works, then we know we can maintain it at that level. If it doesn't, then we know those state funds would just be available to apply to projects in the next budget year.
Yeah, and so getting an early start this year really helped us out on Spruce and Cabela in that Raleigh section. So there was a lot of overlay that we got done early. The crew has been working on the rec center and pool area, the Gertie Bell parking lot right now. They finished it up last week. So then striping will happen in another week, but the pavement is down there. And so within the next 2 weeks, Kevin gets started on the chip seal, fog seal program. That'll last about 6 weeks.
And you'll also see the parking lots. I believe that there was a map in here on the proposed parking lots. And I do have, Kyle sent me an updated one that didn't show this, and I don't know how I managed to put the wrong one online. So that's not his, that's my error there. We did talk about originally having additional parking lots, but because these are actually funded out of the general fund, we did cut those back in order to meet our balanced budget goal. So next year, the only one that's currently included in the budget would be the Corn Palace Plaza parking lot, not behind Cully's, or I mean, not behind the scoreboard like it shows here. So that was my error. After I got a revised map, I put the wrong one online.
It'd be cut off at the alley.
Yep.
Any more questions on the capital improvement projects for anybody?
I've got a couple, I don't know if you want to bring it up or not.
Can I say two major projects too? And I'm sure that everybody heard this at the last meeting, but I just want to point out that the majority of the funding that we have for projects are going into our second phase of East Central drainage. That's $3.1 million. That's a huge, it's going to be a huge improvement though for the city. The end result is going to be that new drainage, storm drainage outflow pipe and those roads being paved now, which has been a council discussion for several years. And then also completing that phase 3 of Sanborn. And this was the total cost of the project. Again, we had portion of that in this year's budget, $4.5 million. So this is doing the balance of that budget in 2020. So it may not look like we're talking about a lot of number of projects, but that's because the ones that we're doing are significant in cost because we are doing that new infrastructure underneath the road surface as well.
Can you bring the list up, please? Okay. Okay. Is that page 1? Yeah. Okay. If you just go toward the bottom of the page, sorry, you go to the bottom of the page, we start out with some projects that got pulled at the rec center, and most of it was remodeling areas that we've identified, like the old pool, and if you go on to the next page, it shows others with the lobby and the youth and so forth. I added those up. There's one in there, and that's the signage, so that is going up, which is good. I added the other ones up, and it's $991,250. And was just wondering, and I know Marty's on the liaison to the committee, or Nathan, has anybody approached any private businesses? Or right now we're kind of in the mode of when we've got very large projects of getting donations, and we've got a naming rights policy now. And so I was just wondering if anybody has ever been approached on this.
We are working on it. I can't say any names right now, but we've been talking to a few possible donors, and we'll keep working on that for the time being, and we'll keep you posted.
And I should maybe share with council one of the conversations that the mayor and that we had internally in reviewing that capital project is that because of the cost of it, it's probably something that we would want to package with other improvements in finance, because that's quite a bit of money to take out of your current operational cash, to take $900,000 of what you have to balance your budget out of operational cash. So it'd be probably something we'd look at financing.
So is this estimates right now, or do we actually have blueprints, or what entails, how do we get the numbers?
These were estimates from MSH Architect. They just helped, they did it for no charge and helped us out while we were doing the pool, the indoor pool. So they're able to help us identify exactly what each room would cost. A lot of our costs have come down because we've already got the locker rooms done. We've done a lot of the rooftop units. The roofing's all complete. So we've gotten a lot of work out of the way this last 2 years.
And for someone who may not know, the rooftop units actually failed. I can't remember how many of them, 4, Nate?
Yes, yeah.
So we're using contingency funds in 2020 to do that replacement.
So that's
This is
not,
2020, I apologize.
Yeah,
I mean, it's 2019. They're coming out of 2019 contingency.
oh, yeah, so that's not included into this 991. Well, and I don't know, obviously, where we're at with the ask, but I'm thinking that maybe a small subcommittee potentially could, as you get, more people in town, so you know who's being asked and who's maybe the potential is. And Mayor, you can think about it, and with President Kevin, if we want to maybe just get a group, smaller group, or Marty, that's the liaison, and work with Nathan, whoever he wants to appoint from the Park and Rec, and maybe even some of the committee members. That would be my suggestion, and that way it's just not falling on one person, because you can't cover all the area in town with just one person. So that would be.
Nathan is working on this, this discussion. In essence, he's got an area where the old pool was, is basically unused in the building at this time. So I hated to cut it out of the budget. Mine is the balanced budget.
Well, I think it's a great idea that we've got it in place and have the estimated cost, and that we pull it out now, because you don't know, somebody might write the check for the whole thing if you don't ask.
I think Jeff's getting at, we should get a committee and get a group of names and go around and, like you said, if you don't ask,
You're right, and we can do that. We'll set up.
you may ask for $10 and they might get you $1 million, you never know. I do too. Don't ask me then.
That was like 7 figures.
I think it's a good idea too, to get a group together to.
I'll work with President Carl to get something set up. Thank you.
Maybe I'll just keep going here since I got the mic open. On page 3, Stephanie. I think this is just for clarification, but I just want to make for sure. Down under the infrastructure, where we have the request of $125,000 for gravel, and then we've got 75 there, but yet down below we've got the paving in at a request of 1,000, but it's 50,000. So is that the 125, or is this totally separate?
No, those are separate. This gravel base is actually a separate GL line in streets and sidewalk construction. We brought it down to actual levels in previous years. After Kyle and Kevin reviewed it, they felt comfortable bringing it down to 75,000. So that's different. I'm sure that this parking lot construction is an error, because
Oh, it
actually
should have been 50.
the department request should have been 100,000, and we cut that in half, and we're only doing Corn Palace Plaza. So I didn't catch that one. It should have said 100,000.
Okay, great.
Does that answer your question?
Yep, sure does. And then on the last page, our favorite topic with water meter replacements. Are we getting close to having 100% out there?
Yes, we are. Actually, I don't think there's more than a handful that don't have the new meters.
Okay. And at what point do we raise their rate?
I think we review that at the fees, when we review all the fees, but that is a good point. We could go up again to have an incentive to change the water meters out.
Remind me again, Kyle, where are we at with the?
50, I believe it is. Yeah.
50 a month, was it?
50 a
Extra?
month.
It is?
That we raised it this year
We
as
raised
a
it a lot, I
penalty.
remember.
And I don't know if that's resulted in more getting switched over or
Yes.
not, but you
That's
raised
right.
the penalty this year.
Yeah, I remember we did.
But we can raise it again.
What's the reason why the 6 don't want to do it? Just don't want you in the house, or what?
I think that's a big part of it. They don't want the government in the house. And there may be some scheduling conflicts where they're working at odd hours, but I think most of it is they wouldn't want us in.
Well, let's try to get it on the next
So-
council meeting and raise them again.
So if they don't want in the house, how do we read their meters?
They actually have to go in the house to read the meters, you're right. But they don't want you reading it all the time, I guess, is the argument.
Okay. Well, when the fees come up, there'd be no reason not to adjust it up again.
Right.
Because we physically have to send people out to do that, and that's what we're trying to get away from. That's why we made the investment. Right.
Anybody else have anything on that they want to discuss, or we can go to the subsidies if we want to?
I am keeping my tracking sheet as I've done for the past with council before. Am I right that I heard there's two things, the capital committee for the rec center, potential sponsorship opportunity or donation, and the second being, I have to fix that error I had where the 100,000 shouldn't be 1,000, it should say 100,000. Was there anything else? Okay.
No.
Good job.
Subsidy applications, we can go through, and you guys want to approve them tonight and get it done with, or what do you guys want to do about that? That sounds good?
No reason not to.
Okay.
And I see there's people in the audience, so if we've got questions, we can definitely bring them up here and ask. But their presentation is going to be
September.
in September. Yeah, if they so choose to give us more
Yeah.
information than what they've already put in the packet.
And just for the general public's information, the council received the full application for each of the subsidy applications. So the council had the chance to go through those financial overviews and everything else as part of that application process.
Should we just start at the top? You want to just go at the top and just work our way all the way down from? Okay. Life Quest. Looks like they requested $9,000 and the budget is going to be for $9,000.
And I do have this just up on the board, so as you're discussing, I'm going to make notes on any directions from council. When you're looking at the spreadsheet here, just so everyone's on the same page, this is the application that was submitted. This is what was in the department requested budget. We've always put them in at last year's level. When the committee reviewed the subsidy request, this is their recommendation. I will track any council changes so you can see what the final is, and I'll make note of those as well. And this will all be included in the proposed budget hearing for that first proposed budget hearing.
The committee was made up of John, Kevin, Danny, and myself. So you can ask us what our logic was.
If there was
And
any.
if there is any.
Yeah.
But there was reasonings behind everyone. Some we took down and some we did not from the prior. So as you walk through these, Kevin, we can definitely
Yeah.
relay some of our thoughts.
So is everybody okay with leaving it $9,000?
Life Quest.
The Life Quest? No objections? We'll leave that at $9,000 then. Okay, Dakota Counseling. They requested 40,000. 62,000. They went to 40, and the committee requested, or last year was 40, and we down to 35. Is there any questions on that one?
One of the things we discussed, and Stephanie brings this up quite often, and it makes sense, is, generally, cities are not looked at as service providers, service to individuals, or mainly that's a county requirement that they, be able to fund a lot of these service associations. And that way, it's just not the citizens of Mitchell that are helping to pay for us, it's all of the citizens of the county. And you think about it, the indigent and attorney fees and so forth, that's all human service related. And that's, we're not taking them completely out, but yet we've identified that maybe it's a little higher than what other cities, and we took a look at what other cities are spending in some of these areas. And so that was part of.
And there's a
what
lot of
we-
counties too involved in this too that don't kick anything in. wasn't
That is
there?
correct.
Right, when we looked at the 2017 statement of activities, 50,000 from the city of Mitchell, and then all the other counties combined were at 25,624. If I remember, they didn't have any other cities funding outside of the city of Mitchell. The direction I heard from the committee was to keep communicating the message back to seek additional partners outside of just the city of Mitchell for those increases and level that field a little bit so that it's not substantially all from the city of Mitchell for those public funds.
Didn't you say they go all the way to Rapid City?
That's what it says in their
Yeah, the
application for
application.
their service delivery area.
So basically we're funding from Mitchell to Rapid City just out of the Mitchell funds, so. So is everybody good with it? Everybody here good with that? Go to 35,000? Or any other everybody's good at 35?
Well, I wish that she were here so we could ask if she has done anything to pursue other revenue sources. I know that this is something we talked about last year, and so it'd just be interesting to know if she's made that effort.
You'll notify every one of them, won't you, on this?
I do send out a letter of award to all of the individual subsidy applications. In that letter, it always says, don't expect, this to continue at the same level. There can always be reductions based on what council direction is. We also asked all of the subsidies from last year to provide a statement of activities of what they did and measurements of how successful they were. So if they provided that, that would have been in your application materials. And not everybody did that. It was a requirement of the application.
We'll just leave it at 35 then. Next one is Mitchell Area Safe House, and looks like since 2017, they've been getting 4,500, but they applied for 5,000 this year. And we just got them at the $4,500 level. I think that's fair. Everybody good with it? Everybody good with that, or anybody object to the 45,000 or 4,500? Okay. We'll go to the next one. The municipal band. They, where's their request? They requested, $12,040. Last year what did we give them last year? 10,250, so we left them the same this year at 10,250, which we thought was fair, since that's what they got last year. Anybody object to that here, or?
I guess just one item of note that the committee did look at. Brookings did a comparison of all of their subsidy applications for other first-class municipalities. We were the second highest on this for the first class that responded to that request.
So we're good?
No change?
No changes. Okay, the next one is fireworks. They've been at 10,000. They requested 10,000. They've had 10,000. We gave them 10,000, so I think that's good.
What's your opinion on that one?
I thought we were about 5, but that's right. We'll just leave it at 10. Next is Prehistoric Indian Village. They requested 16.5. Oh, that's what we requested, okay. The application was for 18. Committee went down to 11.5. And trying to think what our reasoning was. What was the reason for that? I can't remember what we said on that one.
It's been reported to us that they utilize this mostly for marketing. And last year it was presented that it was a new contract for a renewal. And that's why we went up some last year, because we had less of a number in there of what we were going to do. And then
And we gave them more.
Convinced us that we were gonna give them more to help with the grant application software that they
Was it
do
with
have.
computers or something, yeah.
Yeah, and I see Cindy is here if anybody's got questions for her. But that was the rationale behind it.
So we put in the budget to give 11,500.
Well, I'd just like to speak to that just for a minute. I look at this chart and I see that we're giving the municipal band 10,250 and the Exchange Club fireworks 10,000. And I am fully 100,000% in favor of both of those subsidies. But when I look at the Indian Village and see them at only 11,500, which is only $1,500 more than those, and I compare the return on our investment when we talk about what we receive in exchange for that 11,500, or if it were to go up. Right now the village is they've worked to get some grants and they've made it so that all elementary or all children 12 and under can get in free, and that's been just a great boon with a great number of schools bring their kids here. And I looked through the criteria for the awards, the needs that we want them to address, and I think this addresses diversity. It is a history thing. It's an education and literacy. And one of the projects that they're working on, and if you saw in your packet, they're working to bring an international world atlatl. Did I say it right? Atlatl Association competition. And initially we thought it was going to be just a nationwide thing, but it looks like it will be more of a worldwide thing. And that's the kind of thing, in fact, I mentioned to Cindy that she probably ought to consider talking to Katie Bushbach about getting this Sports and Events Authority involved in that. But I think that, I would like to see us increase that. And my reasoning is because this is an entity that brings people to Mitchell. They I feel like they draw in, they just had an event on Saturday, which was the Native American Lore Day, and I don't know what the head count was. Do we have any idea how many?
I have no idea what the head count was, but I do know that we had far, far more people than we thought we would have that day.
This is an organization that has events year-round. I mean, we've got the Lakota Games on Ice in January and throughout the year, and these are events, the archaeology days, and we have the students from Exeter coming over and doing the live archaeology dig. So I recognize that, maybe 18,000 might be a little high, but I would like to see us increase that by $3,500 to $1,500. I think that this group does. Huh? Mm-hmm. A $3,500 increase, so that the total is a 15,000. I didn't say that? Oh.
We're gonna take the 1,500.
Well, you guys just listen to what I mean to say and not what I'm saying then. I'd just like to see us increase that by $3,500 so that we have, so that they have a little more to support. The grant writing, the grant software is very beneficial and has proved to provide great benefits, and they've gotten a lot of grants from that. So, Cindy's kind of a grant writing maniac. Where are we at with grants this year? You guys all know that I serve on the board, so I'm not trying to keep that a secret, but I am.
We have more than doubled last year's grants this year so far, to date.
Yes.
But they're all line item for specific projects, not for marketing or overhead or anything like that. They're just for games and letting the school children in free, the families in free, or the children in free, things like that.
So I'd like to make that motion that we increase that by $3,500 for a total of $15,000.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it. Question, Jeff, and the subcommittee. I'm boxing these four out here, obviously, with three of them asking for more money than the year before. One staying the same, and you guys dropped back basically to what they were allocated in 2019. Any reason why, the specifics of why the Indian Village obviously gets cut back, but a large percentage of cutback? if I'm sort of looking at a percentage number, I know that's what you do for a living, but I'm jumping that out and I'm like, we took a big chunk away from, just curious why. Maybe there was any rationalization. within this.
It came back to that renewal last year that we funded
For that computer.
for that software that she's able to get the grants.
Yeah,
So we looked at it as an investment last year for them, that they can take, if we fund it, then they can take it and turn it into more dollars out there. And so that's why we went ahead.
And the only thing I would add to that is that so many of the grants that they applied for ask if the city is supporting them in any way, if their community is. And so if we were to withdraw our support, or the less money that we give a lot of the grants base what they will give based on how much support they're receiving from the community. So it is kind of an important thing that we're able to say that we're backed by the city of Mitchell.
Okay, we get, any other discussion, or? Okay,
What, maybe before we probably should have had this conversation before we started all these, but right now, we say we've got a balanced budget, so anything we add will be coming out of the contingency, right? Stephanie?
or something else.
Or something else has to be cut, yeah. In order to maintain your structurally balanced budget, if you're adding anything else back in, you have to cut out.
Right, and right now, we are sitting at 800,000 for contingency?
We're a little above that. I think it was 823. Well, and actually, I believe it's above that. Actually, last year at 853, and we're at 910.
Right. But last year, well, what I guess I'm getting to is our contingency for this year that's in the 2020 budget is about what it was for 19. And
This year, we've allocated, or we've committed
right,
$823,000.
that was my point, is we
I think
almost
that's what
went
you're
through
trying to,
it.
yeah. In previous years, we didn't fully expend the contingency. That's how the balance grew a little bit. That's how we were able to improve our financial position so that we could improve our bond rating, all these other things that we've done. But this year, you know, we're still allocating a portion of that for potential revenue shortfall. And because we have cut capital last year and this year out of your departments when stuff has failed, critical failure, it's had to be replaced, like air conditioning units, a large snow blower.
And not only that, is we took 250 out for our sales tax when we didn't see the numbers coming in like it should have.
Is there,
So I just want to point that out, that this just doesn't come from.
It can go quickly.
It's got to come out of somewhere. We either have to cut something that's already in or reduce our contingency.
So Stephanie, are you comfortable reducing the contingency down under the 900 if we did this?
So I've had this philosophical question in conversation with a couple people. You know, we started with a much lower balance in 17 and 18,
Right.
but we haven't seen growth in sales tax number receipts, and so we've kept our revenue really pretty flat. So what happens when we continue to cut equipment out of the budget, because largely the way you have balanced the budget the last 3 years is you're cutting things out of your departmental equipment. Departments are the ones that get cut. When those fail, you have to replace it or you can't continue to do the service. So while we may not have used that level in 17 or 16, I think the longer we continue to delay those replacements, the more we're going to utilize. So while I think council you obviously have every ability to make changes and reduce that down, I just caution you that we've taken a lot of capital out of budgets in the last 2 to 3 years in order to balance it, and you're likely going to have other things fail.
There will be a point where we're going to see a lot of failure.
Yep.
Of machinery.
Well, the air conditioner was 350.
well, this year was an example.
We wound up with failure of 4 rooftop units at the rec center.
Yeah.
You know, it's just-
And a snow blower on a snow removal truck, which was expensive. I believe that was one of them as well. So, you know, things that we do have in the budget, we have that street sweeper in, which we've been pushing that off for, I believe, 3 years. So even in making the recommended cuts to capital that we have, it's with the mind that, knowing that this will get utilized as those things fail because we continue to remove them from the budget in order to balance.
Very good.
I don't know if that's answering your question
Yeah.
cautiously, I
Yeah.
guess.
Is there memberships for there's membership fees? Okay.
And one of the other things that they've done just within the last year is they've created a discovery circle, is what they call it, and they have 20 people, 17 people who have committed $1,000 a year. A lot of them serve on the board, but they have, they've done that, so they have $17,000 that they're raising besides memberships, which I don't know what your membership numbers are.
Memberships average about 5,000.
Are they up or down, or do they stay pretty?
Our memberships are up for the year. And I also want to point out, our gift shop sales are up by 24% this year. Not that it's a whole lot of tax income coming to the city, but it is more than we've done in the past.
I just, and I just want to reiterate that I think that at least when we give the village money, there is a return on that investment. And there's so much emphasis on us doing things and presenting things that will make people, the tourists, want to stay longer and eat here and stay overnight. And I think that the village is one of those things that does meet that criteria. I think it's a great asset. And I know that at least when I'm down by the Corn Palace and I see a tourist, I say, hey, have you seen the village? And, I don't know, it seems like often they'll be like, we're on our way. So I just think that there's a definite return on that investment, where some of the other ones maybe not. But this is something where I think the city does receive a direct benefit back.
And a lot of my portion of my second is the fact that I understand that we have to keep our subsidies in check, and eventually someday they'll probably be completely gone. I mean, we might get to that stage of the game. Going back on the ones that we're taking a look at and definitely knocking them down a little bit is something I believe we have to do, and we did it pretty equally across the board. I just feel that what we're doing here is probably just a little more aggressive than what I think we should do in the year one. Maybe we should work into it. Obviously, they know what's coming down the pipeline. I just think the 5,000 was a pretty aggressive cut, and that's why I asked 1 second Susan on what they do. And once again, all our entities that we do here is great for our community, and they bring people to our public, and they spend, New Mitchell, and they spend money. It's just that I just like to see a little more consistency across the board as we're cutting along.
Any other input? We got a motion and a second. We'll take a vote. All in favor of giving the $3,500 to the Indian Village, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay.
On a board.
Oh, the motion passed without her, so. Next, we'll go on to CASA. Application for 4. We just decided, what's that? Said we give them, we'd allow them $3,000. That's what they received last year, so we figured that was fair to give them again this year. So anybody have any objections to that? Okay. We'll move on. Economic development, Mitchell Area Development Association, they requested on their application for $195,000.
Councilperson McCardle, can I just make a clarification, just in case someone doesn't follow the city
Sure.
very closely and they're listening along? I don't want the general public to get the impression that the amount jumped from 2017 to 2018. We did change the way that we were funding it. In the past, it came partially out of entertainment tax and partially out of general funds. You would have to combine both this line with the line above. So you can see this has been the funding history. So it did not jump like it might look as I'm pulling this up on
Yeah,
the
they
screen,
combine
just
both,
for
yeah.
anybody who's watching.
Okay. The application was for 195.
And I have a question on that. On page 4 of the handout, it says city funds 190.
Right, it did.
In the book.
Oh, okay, I might have had a typo then.
Well, on the next page, at the top, it says personnel 195, but this says city funds 190.
Oh, yeah, I just.
Is it just, okay.
Okay, application 190. When they went through the mayor and Stephanie went through, they had it at 143.
Yep, we always keep those at last year's
Oh, is that
level.
last year's? Okay.
Yep.
The committee, we said we went up, what, 25%, if I believe it was? So we went from 143 to 156 for the budget for this year that we allow them. And I think there's probably going to be some discussion on this probably. Does anybody have any?
Steve, I think you had some additional information on you shared
Yeah,
with me
at
today.
the Development Corp in the chamber was looking to refund the workforce development project and did a ask to a bunch of businesses around. When it was in the first time, I believe there were 5 businesses that gave $5,000 each over a 2 or 3 year period. That ran out. The city at that point didn't participate at all. So as that sunsetted, they went and asked other businesses, and I believe they got 25 businesses to donate $46,000 toward that. So then they're looking if the city can participate in that. And typically when people have done joint projects before, the city has chipped in some. They're looking at to get a total of 70,000. So they had 46 and trying to get to 70 to fund that position, I believe, 2 years? Year and a half. And so I guess that's where I'm coming from on that, of looking to at least get them to the $70,000 level from that $46,000 level. Obviously, they could use all of the money from a development side, but I think the city should participate at some level in the workforce, as I call it, workforce attractiveness of what we're trying to portray the city of Mitchell to be, and a lot of the things that we're doing are in place to try and attract the right type of jobs that we're looking at. And to keep that position in place, I think is important.
They're also working on capital campaigns, community discussed the possibility of participating with them as well.
So are you saying 24?
I'm saying I'd like to see that move to 24,000, and then it makes that, what, a total of
So it'd be another 11,000 on that.
177? 167.
160.
Another 11,000?
Oh, I see. Yep, because you did 13. Yep, I guess that would be my motion.
We have a motion. Does anybody have a, or do you want to talk a little more?
I'll second it.
Okay.
Any other?
Any other comments? Okay, we got a motion by Steve, a second by Jeff. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion passed. Yep, regional economic development. They requested 30.
Yep,
They're
the
at
request
30.
was the same as last year's level at 30,000, and the committee did not recommend any changes to that one.
Everybody good with that?
Yep.
Okay. Next one is Mitchell Main Street and Beyond. They requested 35,000 this year. The committee lowered it to 25. We're just-
I'm the city council liaison for Mitchell Main Street and Beyond, and I would like to request that we increase that back up to the 35,000. You know, Mitchell Main Street and Beyond, I think I sent all of you a letter, but I'll just say what I'll kind of reiterate what I was saying, but they have new leadership, both in terms of staff and Jared Indall, as well as the leadership on the board. Emma DeVos is the president, the board president. Jeff Logan had served in that capacity for seemed like a really long time. But we have Emma DeVos as the president and Dan Buchelman as vice president. And because of that, they've made some pretty significant changes in the way they're doing business. They've set some goals, and they've got a lot of strategies in place to help kind of make sure that they're keeping track of what they're doing and how they're doing it, and making sure that they're managing time. And under the period of time, I mean, Emma's only been in office for 6 months, and Jared has been here for 10 months, but I see that we have a handout that was given to us of the events that they sponsor, and I believe, I think I'm pretty safe to say that every one of those events that we've had, from Wingapalooza to the Downtown First Fridays and the Ladies' Day, the trick-or-treating, the Parade of Lights, all of those things have been bigger this year. Is that fair to say? Bigger this year than they were in years past. And I look at those things, and you know, I just think that if we take that $10,000 away from Mitchell Main Street, I just don't know. I don't know how they will recover that. I don't know that they can survive without that extra $10,000. I look at these events and I think, well, you know, let's say that we don't fund them where they need to be funded. And I mean, honestly, I just don't know. I've seen the budget and it's just not, it's pretty lean as it is. So I just don't know that they would be able to survive if we did that. And then I think, well, then who's going to do all of these things that they do? And I think they do a nice job of them. And as a small business owner and a member of Mitchell Main Street and Beyond, besides the fact that I am their liaison, I appreciate it. I participate in their activities that they have, the Ladies' Days Out and all of the events that they have for the businesses. You know, there are always things that we can improve on, and I think that if we give these guys an extra year to work on the goals that they've set for themselves, I think that they'll prove themselves worthy of the extra $10,000 and put them back at the
I will
level of
second
35,000.
that, and I find the timing a little odd. We built into the south side of the Corn Palace to trying to improve Main Street. We assess all the buildings, $45,000 a year to improve Main Street, and then we go backwards, $10,000 here. You know, we're asking businesses to step up and spend their own money on Main Street, all for beautification. And we're not talking a lot of money that they're giving it to us. From that, everything we hear is Main Street. You know, Third Main's closed down. You know, we're going to do more on the Corn Palace for Main Street. So, and then if we want the businesses to step up and spend $45,000, I think we need to be staying where we're at.
How many years has Mitchell Main Street and Beyond been in operation?
If we go back to our 2008 is when we first contributed to it. I don't know if that was the first year, but it's got to be pretty close. We were just started on council.
In fact, I was a liaison back then on that, and when we first talked about it, was 5 years, 30,000. We kind of agreed you couldn't go ahead and tell the other council that we're going to commit to it, so we just said this was it, and we took it. We thought it'd be done by then, but just
And that was, as John and Kevin and Danny and I were discussing, is the fact that this is membership driven, you know, and so that's where we were saying that, well, at some point, you know, and Dan, you do bring up a good point on the bid that was put in place, that you are contributing to downtown. But that was the thought that we had is eventually the city should be out of this, because if we're doing a good job, you would think that the members and new members would want to join because they see all the positive things that are happening. Now, maybe we are a little too soon with this moving forward, but But that was the thought the committee had, was at some point, the membership probably needs to be the majority, if not all, of the income, or at least without the events, that's coming in. So in our minds, we were slowly weeding out.
And I'm glad you brought up membership. I had a conversation with Emma, and she pointed out that really before she took office, there really hadn't been any specific membership goals that were being, that had been set for that board to work to achieve. I did a little bit of math, and I figured, it would require, gosh, I can't remember what the number was now. I can't remember if I was going for the full 35,000 or if I was doing just the $10,000. But it's how many more members? Help me out here, Jared. Would we need to recoup that $10,000 depending on the level they came in at?
If we just added $50 to each member, 100 members, that's 5,000 right there. So.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the only way you get money to come in there, just by membership? You go out and work, or?
That's predominantly our main revenue source. There's a few of our events like Wingapalooza. That's our biggest event fundraiser. So membership is probably our main source of income, but there's Wingapalooza, Caramel Apples. There's different events throughout the year that also raise income. A lot of our events that we do aren't really income driven. I mean, our main source is trying to get people to come downtown. First Fridays, for example. I mean, that's not a huge income booster for us, but that is just an event to really try and get people to come downtown, and an opportunity for our businesses to showcase their unique businesses and products that they have. So,
Well, another reason, because we've talked to business owners, and they've never seen you before. I mean, as far as trying to get money from them. And that's kind of disappointing. I mean, if you don't talk to people on Main Street and you come to us and ask us for money when you're not trying to get it yourself, that's kind of.
I'm going to take a little bit of, I disagree with that. There was one meeting when you were in charge at that time, and they sent the board out that day, and they went out in pairs, and they went door to door and knocked on the doors of all the businesses downtown and appealed to them and gave them the spiel. And I mean, membership is, I will say the downtown businesses are feeling, the bid was a big deal, and sometimes it's very difficult to convince them that membership is something that they need to do, and yet they are reaping the benefits. I mean, the Downtown Fridays, I probably can't say it enough, and I know you've heard me say it, but I'll tell you, the last month when we went, it was, actually the last 2 months are the two that I didn't miss the first one, but they have just been huge. And afterwards and during them, I have so many people say, I just love this. And I look and I see all the people on the plaza and the music, and it's crowded and people are excited. And I think, that's not something that you can put a price tag on. I mean, you can't say, well, we raised how much money or whatever, but I think that's a quality of life event, and it's something that people have really embraced and enjoy. And that's the kind of thing that I think, we need to be supporting that as a council, because it's something that, whether it's bringing in a lot of money, it's something that is a positive thing for our community.
Well, and as you mentioned earlier too, I started this position in September of last year, and one of the first goals or projects that was set out for me was to totally revamp our membership brochure. So with that, I mean, that took us probably 3-4 months and several drafts to do. We actually finally approved that now with Emma coming on as president just after the new year. Around March, I think, is when we finally approved the final edit of that. So then after that, actually in September, we have a membership walk planned. So that kind of goes to your question of trying to get out there. And
What is the percentage of memberships to non-memberships on Main Street?
Since October, we've had an increase of 14 new members. That's also inclusive to existing members boosting up to another higher level. that also includes Innovative, for example. They were a sponsor. They increased their membership and sponsorship level another $500. So that's an example of different opportunities that really we're trying to approach businesses and people to get on board with us and what we're trying to do with our mission and vision.
Are all of your members also chamber members? And how?
Not
Is
all
there-
of them. There's a mix of both. Some, we have members of just Main Streets. Some are members of both. There's really a mix.
There's been talk that it would be nice if you could have one membership and be a part of the chamber, Mitchell Main Street Economic Development.
Right.
But that hasn't happened at this point.
Your Main Street and beyond, beyond is Innovative.
Yes, yes.
Do you have a lot of that are beyond?
Some, I would say majority of ours are on Main Street. Muller Lumber is another example of the beyond. But there's a few.
County Fair?
Yes, County Fair, Colborn's, that's kind of a beyond, but still on Main Street. So there's a mix.
So either Susan or Jared, of the information that was given to us, you talked about a membership program or plan that is being designed. How long, is that included into this?
You know,
packet?
unfortunately, Emma is in Kansas City, and so she wasn't able to be here tonight. But that was just a comment that she made to me, that was that they had established. Can you give us some more information on the membership goals that are being set?
So one of our main membership, we totally revamped our membership benefits levels. Our two biggest levels were to really try and be inclusive to sponsorships with First Fridays, for example, and Wingapalooza, for example. So those are really targeted to kind of our bigger corporations and bigger businesses. So that was one of our bigger goals, was to try and sell somebody to one of those top two tiers. I would say majority of our members are just at the 125 level. So when we revamped our membership benefits, that was our big goal, was trying to incorporate more people to be in those sponsorship level.
And Jared, explain that, because I'm a little fuzzy on it too. But are you saying that if a large corporation or a large business sponsored a First Fridays, that would count as their
As a
membership?
Correct.
So I think that's an important thing for you to understand, that, you know, it costs money to run those First Fridays, and they're doing their membership, but that money isn't really going into Mitchell Main Street's
Yes.
pocket.
How
It's really
previously
going to help.
was, a sponsorship was totally separate than a membership. And so when we revamped everything, we wanted to try and keep that inclusive.
So with Emma not here, obviously, but if between now and September 3rd, if there's the ability to maybe put the plan in front of us, I would like to see that before my vote's going to stay the same as of right now. We've got a month. Is that sufficient time to be putting some things together?
Sure.
That's where I'm going to be.
And what date would that be, Stephanie, in September?
I think it's the third. I think it's the third.
Whatever the first Tuesday of the month is after Labor Day.
Let's look here.
That'll work.
I tend to agree with Jeff. The other thing that I'm kind of curious is, do you ever foresee a time where you will not need a significant amount of money from the city? I mean, 35,000, what you've gotten in the past few years is the bulk, the vast majority of your income. Do you ever foresee the time where you won't need so much money from the city?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, again, like we're going through a total revamp of our membership benefits. I mean, if we can really have that to really be an income driver, I absolutely can definitely see that.
And that's what we'll see in September, similar to that.
Yes.
I mean, I just want to call your attention to their sources of income on their budget page. So their new memberships at this point are $1,500. I assume that's your 14 members at $125. The renewals are at 12,000. But then look through the rest of them. I mean, the caramel apple sales, which is part of Corn Palace, is a tradition. The Christmas shopping for kids, that's definitely, it's a community service where kids can go and shop, and it's not a moneymaker for Main Street. It's not, it is, I mean, that's the thing that I think is important to note, is that a lot of the things that Mitchell Main Street and beyond are not things that raise money for them, but they're certainly, that doesn't make them any less valuable to our community in terms of what the benefits are. First Fridays, $6,000, but most of that, I think, if you look at this,
Goes to bands,
goes to
yeah.
the expenses. So, you know, the planters, I can't tell you how many people I've had stop me this year and tell me how beautiful Main Street and around the Corn Palace looks, and I can't say enough of how beautiful it is, but those planters and those sponsors, you know, that's 100% just flipped out, and we take it in and pay it out to the people that are doing the flowers. And then Wingapalooza, while it raises $12,000, I think the amount that Mitchell Main Street maintains is like $5.
It's pretty close, 5, yeah, depending on the expenses every year.
Depending on the year, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah, Wingapalooza 3,500 is,
And I'm not arguing that
Yeah.
any of these, I don't want any of them to go away. But it's just that we honed in on that 12,000 and the 1,500 and saying, at what point in time is that going to be increasing? And so that's all I'm saying is I would like to see a plan. I don't know if the city will ever be out of it, but we have been promised over the years that it's going to be reduced because we're going to be able to bring in more members. So that's where I'm at, is just, and, you know, if the plan gets followed 50% of what it is, at least it's a plan. And that's where, you know, again, we're not arguing against any of these events that are happening. They're all fun and they're all got some value to it, obviously. They brought back the Parade of Lights the last couple of years and so forth. So, yeah, obviously, we're bringing more people into the downtown area. But I'm glad you're working on a plan, but I would just like to take a peek at it.
I think if I'm hearing this right, if this were to get voted not to happen tonight, you're going to review this again when they bring the plan and the budget hearing, and it could be increased at that time, should it not go through tonight, correct?
That's,
There's a motion.
I don't know how they're gonna vote,
There's a-
I just wanna make sure I understand.
there's a motion and a second, so we'll have to do it.
I didn't have a second, I just heard the motion.
Dan.
Dan Sabers?
I just wanna make sure I understand what's gonna happen, so.
Right, it'll be a possible second.
And your motion was to take it.
To take it $10,000 higher, right?
Increase 10,000, no second by Dan.
Okay.
and let me just add one
No.
more thing, that I have a lot of confidence in the new leadership that's in place. And I can't say enough good about Bobby. She's been instrumental with helping Jared and kind of mentoring him in his first 10 months of his position. And she's just been such a valuable asset. She's actually stepped in and been the director a couple of times between directors. But I have a lot of confidence in Emma and Dan and the board that sits there now. And I think that the goals that they've set, I think that they'll, I'm extremely optimistic, so.
Okay, so we got a motion by Susan, second by Dan, to increase it $10,000 from 25 back to 35,000, correct? All in favor of the vote, say yes, or whatever. Aye.
Aye.
How many ayes? All, okay, we'll do a roll call.
Allen.
Aye.
Barrington.
Aye.
Dosher.
No,
McCardle.
No.
Sabers.
Aye.
Rice. Smith.
No,
Charks. Yes, correct.
Okay,
But it wouldn't hurt to have that membership plan anyway. Yep, yep.
no, they don't have to do it. See you next year.
any other comments on, we got a couple minutes left, or we could finish the meeting, whatever, any other comments on anything that anybody wants to talk about?
We have one more, and that's the remaining subsidy application from the Convention and Visitors Bureau. Similar comment on this one, that we used to break that apart based on the previous ordinance that the city had, where we separated out what we were doing for regional marketing versus CVB, and we moved those into one funding application. When? 2019 was the first year. Here it is. So this amount has not increased. It's just that it's no longer, it's been at flat since 2017 when we brought all the budgets down because of, to make them compatible with what the forecast for entertainment tax was. So just wanted to make sure I pointed that out. So the application is 273. And that was last year's level, so that's what's in the budget, and the committee didn't recommend any changes at this point.
Everybody good with that? Leave it as is? Okay. Now we,
24,500. I put in a formula. There you go.
so we're going to
Yep, that's what your changes have been. And you didn't make any, I don't know if you're going to go back and reconsider anything on capital, but without any additional changes, this is what I would reduce the contingency amount by to keep it structurally balanced.
I
for
asked
the-
one question. Does any department heads want to come down 24,000?
They don't have anything left.
Ain't gonna happen.
Yeah,
Kevin's hand is, looks like Kevin's hand is the highest.
I think we had some,
With all due respect, I think they've sacrificed quite a bit.
I know they have.
yeah, I think the,
I don't care.
So honestly, this is the most painless process that I've been through in 13 years. And you guys, there was just enough pain, it's just that the council didn't have to go through it, so.
I don't know that some of the department heads do.
No, that's what I mean. You guys did a lot of the heavy lifting getting it to us, but it really does make a lot of sense. And I'm sure there's gonna be some people disappointed, they still, I'm sure, wanna come in September, and that's their prerogative. And John, in all reality, anything can be changed between now and September if we decide to do it, so, but I do wanna thank you guys for this. I mean, it was just a solid budget, and we just had to do a little tweaking to it.
so we'll be,
Just,
Okay.
Stephanie, your tab, the DR versus PB changes or whatever, that, to me, explained or took a lot of the pain out of trying to figure out what was what, and then 3 and 5 year actuals. And I actually spent some time on the comparison to other cities. That's very interesting and eye-opening. So makes it a lot easier. And Jeff, you're absolutely right. So.
And just to clarify, does this seem to match what council's discussion was tonight, that the mayor had said he would look at putting together a capital committee for the rec center for a potential sponsorship, that I'm going to fix that error that I didn't catch. I did catch the patrol car, but I hadn't caught this one, that from should say $100,000 on the capital list for parking lots. It's not a change because it's already in the budget at 50. We're going to increase subsidies by $24,500 based on the discussion tonight, and I'm going to reduce contingency by $24,500.
And
Does that sound correct?
Nate,
Sounds good to
Nate,
me.
can you get the specifics on the bumper,
I forgot
the
that.
stuff?
Thank you.
yep, we'll get that.
I think it's a great idea. I just want to make sure we don't
Yep.
damage anything, or if we do, we're ready for it.
We'll do, yep.
And was that it? Oh, the presentation. Does council still want to see the presentation on the membership
Yes.
from Mitchell Main Street? Okay.
yeah.
I have to write this down or I won't.
Any other conversation, anything else, or should we adjourn? We'll adjourn the meeting.
You could. Remember, we'd be here till 11 o'clock at night?
15 hours and the chairs weren't even used.